News 24 says Uganda-born candidate Zoran Mamdani set to be the first Muslim New York mayor, which brings up interesting comments from Stephen Miller, who says the commentary about New York City Democrats nominating an anarchist socialist for mayor omits one point: how unchecked migration fundamentally remade the New York City electorate. Democrats change politics by changing voters. That's how you turn a city that defined U.S. dominance into what it is now. And then we have this from Miller as well. New York City is the clearest warning yet of what happens to a society when it fails to control immigration. Interestingly, ALX says the Trump administration has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. Zoran Mamdani is a socialist, and he's said that New York needs a communist, and there's little distinction between the two. Well, according to U.S. law, if you're a member of a communist affiliation of any kind, you're not admissible. You have to mention this. And the argument people are making is that if you're a communist and you come to this country, that you can't actually gain citizenship or gain legal residency. So people are claiming that he's technically illegal. Well, that's a bit of a stretch. But the issue that we are seeing is that Democrats, by opening the border and allowing tens of millions of non-citizens into this country, has resulted in a reshaping of this country in a way that the actual citizens and those who inherited this country never agreed to. The question then becomes, when you have people who are even citizens, but only for a short time, who don't have allegiance to the American system, American values, American tradition, what is the American population to do when this foreign voting bloc votes to take control? You get conflict and crisis, and it's disastrous. Slowly over time, perhaps the Democrats thought they were going to reshape this country by stripping away the inheritance of Gen Z and giving it to foreign-born individuals. Therein lies the challenge. It seems like sentiment around mass deportation is extending well beyond just those who are here illegally, with questions of whether birthright citizenship should even apply, and questions of whether or not foreign-born individuals, particularly socialists, should have a right to run for office, which is a major challenge and a point of controversy. Well, we're going to be pulling in Ann Coulter right now to join us and talk with us about all of this. Let's get the site loaded up and have her join in. It is currently loading. And Ann, good to see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Tim?
Yes, I can. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
So, everybody already knows who you are, and so we'll just jump right into it. New York's Democrats have elected a foreign-born Muslim socialist or communist as their nominee. Just first, I'm curious your thoughts on that nomination.
Well, you're putting kind of a negative spin on it. The upside is, oh my gosh, is this a rebuke to Andrew Cuomo? I'm still so happy about that. I'm on cloud nine. I hate Cuomo for so many different reasons, destroying the city. Remember when he was going to be the alternative to Trump? Those absolutely sanctimonious and raging press conferences he'd have every day, destroying businesses. He also destroyed the Proud Boys, you'll recall. Really outrageous for a governor when it was the Proud Boys who were attacked by Antifa. Antifa refuses to press charges. They run away. Yep. And the police arrest the Proud Boys. The governor of the state comes out and says, white supremacists, they've got to be. These innocent men spent years in prison. One guy had just had a baby. I won't forgive him for that. He's also the one behind. People blame Alvin Bragg, the DA of New York, for the crime going through the roof in New York. No, it was Governor Cuomo. Before he was elected governor, he said, the first bill I'm going to sign is the no bill law. And that requires, police go to all this trouble, arrest a violent criminal, and they have to be let go immediately. And suddenly, poor commuters are being pushed in front of subways, machete attacks, homeless people, every place. That's Andrew Cuomo. And when he's running for mayor, he doesn't even take it back. He stands by that. So, plus side of what happened last night is, wow, that's the end of Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of like when AOC beat Crowley. There's a bit of watching the establishment flounder that feels good. But agreed, I don't think Cuomo was going to be a good mayor either. But there's a lot of concern now over this Zoran guy. He wants city-owned supermarkets. He wants to get rid of the police. He's an overt communist.
No, it's out. He's utterly preposterous. I think it's worth pointing out that that isn't what he ran on. I mean, he was like Kamala in overdrive, which is to say he's abandoned everything that he said back in 2020, 2021, 2022. Suddenly he's just, the perky millennial. And he is perky, and he does seem to have a nice personality, and he campaigned all over. To actually find out what his positions are requires people to read. I don't think they were doing that. So I can totally see why he's popular. I can totally see that if you don't read. I think the only hope, and I was following this very closely. I was at a political kind of party last night, and we were checking on our iPhones. Man, Mamdani was ahead early on as soon as the results, and it just went up and up and up. And so I was tweeting most of the night. I think the only hope, and there are rich Democrats in New York, or even rich Republicans ought to take this position, who have property and interests and lives, and they don't want it destroyed. And I think they've got to come together and force Cuomo off the ballot in the general and make him endorse Eric Adams, force Curtis Sliwa off the ballot in the general and make him endorse Eric Adams. And I think there's a good chance that Eric Adams could beat this lunatic, but not if the only alternative are three candidates basically running on the exact same law and order platform and I'm not a communist, and they split the vote.
Yep.
So I do think there's still hope, but we can't have these narcissists. No, I'm staying in the general election. No, Curtis, you have no chance. It's not going to happen. Get off and endorse Adams. And same thing with Cuomo. I also think, if I can just blather ahead with one other thing that I think is interesting about this, as I've been saying for years, this is a huge problem for the Democratic Party. The reason all of their main players are octogenarians, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Steny Hoyer, Joe Biden, is because once they're gone, you got Mamdamis and AOCs and Hakeem Jeffries all the way down. It is the young, often foreign-born progressives in the Democratic Party, and this is going to be a sticking point and a huge, huge problem for them. They didn't think of that, but let's bring in half of the third world. They'll vote for us. Yeah, and then they're going to want to get elected.
Yeah,
geniuses.
Does New York City for the general do ranked choice voting?
No,
just the Democrats in the primary.
And so I think there's a perfectly good chance for Eric Adams to win if enough serious New Yorkers take this seriously. And, and I think they will. One other anecdote that always gives me hope about New York. As San Francisco was being destroyed, and Oakland being destroyed, and Los Angeles being destroyed, and New York being destroyed, I went to a big dinner party in New York, like more than 10 people, all from LA and San Francisco, tech world, refugees, and they had all bought huge places in New York. And at some point I said to them, so you think San Francisco's over, and you think LA is over, but you bought a big place in New York City. And their answer, I think, is true and very insightful. They said in California, especially LA, liberals are crazy and stupid. But in New York, liberals are crazy but smart.
I don't know.
So
I don't know if I
I'm
agree.
hoping for.
Yeah, maybe something happens with Trump and he doesn't want to see New York fall. He famously had a huge role in reviving it in the 80s. Maybe he'll have some passion there. But there's a big question now that I see a lot of people are posting. Maybe we shouldn't allow foreign-born individuals to hold office at all in this country. That with what the Democrats had done over the past 4 years, especially with allowing 10 plus million illegal immigrants into the country and then giving them de facto residency by just erasing the hearings from the docket, you are going to end up with, if Democrats win in 2028, they're going to bring in as many illegal immigrants as possible. It's going to manipulate the census. They're going to win, and then they're going to codify all this, grant amnesty, give everybody voting rights, and then Americans never win another election, and the United States becomes just an open landmass for whoever. This has led to a lot of people taking a more extreme approach, saying, why is a Ugandan-born communist a mayor of our greatest city? Even Stephen Miller has put out a tweet saying this is the perfect example of what happens when you have unfettered immigration. It changes your electorate. Democrats bring in different people to change who is supposed to be voting and inheriting this country. I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, that's among my arguments in Adios America that, thank God, Trump picked up and used for his 2016 campaign. Yeah, of course, that's what's happening. Anyone who's spent any time in California, in LA, has seen it happen in real time. It's always driven me crazy that, people in these nice 1950s style states, Wisconsin, they still have blockbusters. They refuse to believe their friends in California. Don't they have friends, relatives? How about check in with Minnesota and how's it going? Bringing in 100,000 Somalis. Can you talk to people in other states where it's already happened? I kind of thought when I wrote Adios America in 2015 is when it came out that it might be too late. But it's worth it. It's my country. It's worth taking a shot at it. As for not allowing the foreign-born to run, it sounds extreme. I think the most important thing to do, we wouldn't get Schwarzenegger. I wouldn't mind having, Elon Musk or Peter Thiel run for governor or something someplace. There's some very good foreign-born politicians that you wouldn't mind seeing. Not president, not Ted Cruz. Wasn't born in America. Wow. Sorry, not natural born. Anyway, that's another story. The main thing that needs to happen, which is why, people think I'm a nut and I was mad at Trump during his first term because he didn't build the wall and he didn't do his deportations. It is the only hope. Forget these half measures, the tertiary measures. You're coming in too late when you're saying, and they can't hold office. No, we need mass deportations. Keep the planes going. We got found out, thank you, Supreme Court, this week that he can send them to foreign countries. We need absolute mass deportations. We need Democrats in places like New York and California to be arrested themselves for interfering with federal agents. Mass deportations. It determines every other issue. That's been my complaint for the past week. I hate when we stop talking about immigration, talk about anything else, including the attack on Iran, which, I'm fine with. But I keep pointing out, how long is Israel going to last once America is majority third world that is either indifferent to Israel or actively despises Israel? The most important thing Americans can do for Israel right now is mass deportations and a wall, an immigration moratorium. We are so teetering on the edge of the end. So I think it's worth complaining when Trump isn't keeping his immigration promises, though he mostly is this term. So I'm back in the fold.
I agree on the issue of Israel. I've made this point quite a bit that when you look at polling trends, support for Israel is rapidly declining. I had this argument last night with Elad Eliyahu, one of our reporters, as well as Batya Ungar-Sargon. And her position was that after the war ends with Gaza and Hamas, it will repair itself. But I disagree. I take a look at the point you're making with foreign-born individuals. If you look at Ilhan Omar, she's I believe she's Muslim, right? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, she doesn't like Israel, and neither does AOC. It's not just that many people from countries that despise Israel come to the United States, but that this sentiment spreads on social media among the younger generation. And you combine that with a younger right wing that largely just says, we don't want to be involved. So you get this right wing, anti-interventionist, left-wing anti-Israel, and the prediction is pretty obvious. Give it 10 years, and the U.S. is not going to be offering funding or any support to Israel because Congress is going to be looking at who butters their bread. And they're going to be campaigning like this guy Zoran is. He's anti-Israel as well.
The anti-Israel crowds on the college campuses and among the millennials, it's more than that they're obviously being third world is a big part of it, but it's like a chicken and the egg problem. It's all of this hate white people, which, wow, a lot of Democrats were fine with, and white genocide and the problem with whiteness, and whites are so smug, and whites suck, and whites this. And, I soon after October 11th, I interviewed the editor of The Tablet, really fantastic Jewish publication. And I had to explain to him, no, sorry, you're white. In fact, you're like super white. Really successful, carved this democracy and functioning country out of the desert. You want jealousy and hatred, everything that all the hatred and anti-Western civilization Israel's not escaping that. They're like the pinnacle of Western civilization in many ways, in the sense that they are successful and smart. And that's what young people are taught at colleges and through our media to hate. And the media went along with it. The universities went along with it. And, well, now it's coming back to bite them.
Well, that's a big play that we've seen over the past several years with corporate press publications and Democrats, the making it all about white supremacy and white people. But I'll give you a quick anecdote. I went to, being from Chicago, I went to the Christmas market, as we do every year. And it was fascinating because when I went back to Chicago for Christmas a couple of years ago for the first time in 10 or 15 years. And the Christmas market every day, every year at Christmas I think it's in Daley Plaza. And there's a bunch of shops and they're like largely German themed. It's the Kris Kringle market. And I went there and I noticed it's not that it's not whiteness or it's not that it's all of a sudden there's non-white people. It was that they were foreign individuals, shoulder to shoulder. It was too crowded to walk. They have mugs every year. It was impossible to get. And the issue that I have is not that these people are not white. It's that they're not from the United States. And so, I asked my friends, I was like, when did this change? When I was a kid, we'd come here. It wasn't overcrowded. It was people of different racial backgrounds, but everybody was American, speaking North American dialect English. They were either legal immigrants who had come here, their children grew up here, and you'd walk around, buy things, and leave. Now it's shoulder to shoulder, impossible to go, and it feels like the third world. It feels like being in India. And I don't mean because of the people. I mean because you can't squeeze in. Everyone's fighting. There's no bathrooms, and that is a tremendous transformation that I found to be shocking.
And we can take it. I mean, not anymore. We need like a 20-year moratorium at this point. We're full on foreigners now. But America does do a great job taking in people from very dissonant cultures from ours. But what we've been doing for the past 50 years is taking in huge, heaping portions of them. I mean, entire tribes coming in and moving to Minnesota. And then, assimilation is literally treated like a dirty word.
Yeah.
Liberals have said that, it's like using the N-word to talk about assimilation. So they come in and they create all these ethnic lobbies. I was thinking this week, I tweeted out, I literally heard, I'm channel surfing, there's a guy like, I don't know, Committee for Democracy in Iran. And he literally said, to make America great again, first we have to make Iran great. Wait, isn't that what Alexander Vindman told us about Ukraine? The Cubans are telling us about Cuba. Maybe not a great idea to bring in all these ethnic lobbies whose number one issue is helping their home country.
Yep.
Thus the brilliant Trump slogan, make America great again. No, this mass, never has a country been transformed demographically as the United States has with this alacrity in the last 50 years. It's stunning. It was planned. It was an intentional. The Kennedy family's greatest gift to the Democratic Party, as one Democratic consultant called it, since his 1965 Immigration Act. Legal immigrants, forget this legal, illegal distinction, have been about 90% from the third world, and they vote 70 to 80% for the Democrats. This wasn't an accident.
What do you think about the big, beautiful bill, Trump calls it? You've got the holdouts in the Republican Party, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie say it's too much deficit spending. But Tom Homan is like, get it done. I need the money for CBP and ICE. And Trump, of course, saying the same thing.
I do hate the deficit spending, so I agree with Rand Paul and Massey on that particular issue. And I guess I'm glad somebody out there is saying it. It's getting embarrassing having Republicans pass these enormous bills. But yes, the number one issue, nothing else matters but immigration, because every other issue is determined by immigration. You're never going to get that deficit down if you have people like Ilhan Omar doing the voting. The number one issue is immigration. That determines what kind of country we have on absolutely every issue, on free speech, on guns. Look at the polls on what the foreign-born think about free speech. They come from countries. We're the freest country in the world, Tim. Any foreigner we bring in, basically by definition, makes our country less free. Every issue depends on who we bring in through immigration. So if Homan and Miller tell me they need this to build the wall and get those planes flying them to the South Sudan, then yes, I don't care if it has abortion on demand. I don't care if the deficit doubles. Just get them out of the country.
Yeah, I was asking Massey if what if they put repealing the NFA, the National Firearms Act, in the bill? Would you vote for it then? He laughed at, maybe you give him something big, and I'm like, hey, I'd love that too, more gun rights. But the example.
Massey's problem is, I interviewed him. Oh, and by the way, I'm very bad at advertising myself. Please go to my Substack, anncoulter.substack.com, columns, videos. I interviewed Massey actually a couple of times because he's really smart, really, really smart. He went to MIT. He created inventions, made millions of dollars as an undergrad. Anyway. He's a libertarian. He's very bad on the immigration issue and drugs. So I invited him back after having one just pleasant interview with him. The second one, I said, all I want to do is argue with you about the stuff that you're wrong on. And don't worry, you're smarter than I am, but you're wrong. And I looked up his district after seeing how awful he is on immigration. And it's 1950s America. Mm-hmm. It's 90% white. So, yeah. Okay, go spend 2 weeks in LA. Then I'll take you seriously on immigration.
I make the point, trying to explain to people, they'll argue, what does it matter if Springfield, Ohio brings in, 20,000 Haitians? Who cares? We need the workers. And the issue is going to be real simple. You mentioned we're going to keep having deficit spending if we bring on people like Ilhan Omar, not just because she has socialist tendencies, but because if you have a sinking ship, and what do we call it when a foreign vessel approaches yours as you're in distress and then enters in violation of your rules and laws? We typically refer to that as piracy. And so what happens is these people have no intention of rescuing the sinking ship. They say, grab as much as you can before it sinks. So what ends up happening is I inherit the way I describe it to people is my grandfather built a baseball field, hypothetically, not real. And the town gathered around this baseball field every summer, and we all love it. Well, now we need funds to repair it. But Joe Biden just brought in 10,000 Haitians into our town. And when it comes to a vote, what do they vote for? They vote for the money for themselves, for what they want. And they built an immigrant welcome center. And now we lose our traditions and our values and the things that our ancestors sacrificed for us to have. And the sad thing about it is, we in the United States have held the door open for all of these people so long as they're coming through neatly and orderly. But then Joe Biden just knocked the wall down and said, everybody come in. Now we have immigration as the second biggest issue of the last election.
Mamdani came in neatly and orderly. You got to drop the neatly and orderly. The difference between legal and illegal immigration does not exist. The Boston bombers, legal. The Pulse nightclub shooter, well, one generation legal. San Bernardino, legal. These are Teddy Kennedy's Immigration Act change who comes in legally. And the point you're making about the baseball field, really important point. I do recommend everyone read my book, Adios America. There's nothing that isn't made worse by mass immigration from the third world. And one of those things is that dovetails with what you're saying is social trust. There was this study by, I think he's Harvard, Robert Putnam. He held on to the study for years. And it was, how much people contribute to charities, trust their neighbors, listen to the news, join civic organizations, help with local problems. So that social trust marker, the one factor that makes it go down the most is the percentage of immigrants in your town. And he was so horrified by this because liberal, and he ran, a billion different possible explanations. And nope. It always came down to the number of foreign-born. And it's not just that they don't trust people who are foreign-born and foreign-born people don't trust them. People don't trust anybody in these high foreign population towns. It destroys social trust. And as for the cheap workers, look, if the country's over, the one fun I'm going to have, as I did with Mamdani crushing Cuomo last night, is watching all of these businessmen who were, happy to wreck our country so they could make another dollar. Watch them how when they see the rules under a government run by the Mamdanis and the AOCs. Ha, ha, ha. I'll sign up for Sanders and work for a wealth tax if our country's finished.
I do see in the long term with Trump's victory and the popular vote, the trend in this country is going to be in the right direction. I think the polls show like the lowest wrong direction polling in a while, meaning like we're doing better.
Yes.
Liberals don't have kids. They abort their kids. They sterilize their kids. Their policies lead to the collapse of business. New York and Chicago are in dire straits. I mean, New York already bad, now going to get worse if this guy wins. Chicago, the Tribune warned New York, don't make the same mistake we did. They're spiraling. It kind of feels like, okay, we wait 20 years and then come in and clean up the mess and everything goes back in a better direction.
I don't think so. Again,
No?
This is why immigration is the most important issue. Historically, that has been true. You get, the Watergate Congress and betraying Vietnam and all the Great Society programs. And then poof, whatever, 15, 20 years later, you get Ronald Reagan. Yay, and it's morning in America. It has gone back and forth and back and forth. And that was with a population that was 80 to 90% white and 10 to 20% black. It was not, 30% third world. Now it's going to swing back and forth between communist, socialist. No, it's not swinging back once you change the people out. Why? If it's just an idea, I really hate this line. Oh, America, it's just an idea. If it's just an idea, why aren't they all America? Because we can, write it down. We can email the idea to them. They could do it, but they don't.
I'm pretty
It's
sure
the
we
people.
did that with Liberia. Was that the story of Liberia? We gave them the American Constitution. And I think the issue is the people in the area. You can't just put development on a people. The left tries to make it specifically that we're all racist for saying so, when the issue is development, education, culture, trust, etc. And so, but my point was largely, I think, with Trump's victory, the American people have started to recognize the things you're saying, and if we keep up this pressure, and if Trump gets his agenda through, this will start to reverse course because of the mass deportations, because of the potentially a moratorium on immigration.
Yes. And I'd also add, thank God Trump picked J.D. Vance as his vice president. I see a very bright future. You never know what's going to happen. But having J.D. follow Trump could save the country.
Well, do you think that when it comes to New York in this election, there's no party now behind Cuomo and Adams and Sliwa? They're different groups, probably with different advisors. Are they going to actually come together and recognize what they have to do to defeat Mamdani?
Well, Sliwa and Cuomo definitely won't, out of the goodness of their hearts. But I think people who are serious about saving New York have got to put pressure on them and make them do it, give them a sinecure, threaten to hold their heads underwater until the bubbles stop. They've got to do something to make them come out and support Eric Adams. And I don't think they should just be reaching for some random other candidate, let's run Blumenberg's assistant or something. No, Adams is there. At worst, he's the devil we know. He's actually been a pretty good mayor, held back by all the same progressives that will now be running. He's been like the one bulwark. He just put in a great police commissioner, but it's been the New York City Council. It's been the New York State Legislature. It's been the governors, both Cuomo and Hochul. It's been Alvin Bragg, the DA. That's what has stood in the way of Eric Adams being able to accomplish a Giuliani-style miracle in New York. You make the mayor the same one, well, then you're just totally lost. And I read Nate Silver's. He has a great silver bulletin, a very good pollster. You're probably all familiar with him. He had an analysis of what had happened. And one of the things he said was, and he's very good at predictions, he says right now he gives Mamdani a 75% chance of winning the general.
Wow.
And he said the other 25% is pretty much all for Adams. So
Wow.
you gotta run Eric Adams. Don't try to get people behind that ridiculous Curtis Sliwa or the dead as a doorknob Andrew Cuomo. Force them to endorse Eric Adams. And I don't know, that's the only hope I see.
I got about a minute left, but I'm curious, in the event that Mamdani wins, if he does start enacting these insane policies obstructing ICE, how would you feel about Trump using federal law enforcement and the DOJ to go in and straighten out New York City in whatever way that might emerge?
In any way that's legal, I would be for that. I saw some very, very optimistic proposals on Twitter last night. Hey, let's deport this guy.
Yes, he's a communist. Yeah, people are claiming he
There
lied
may
on his
be some
immigration.
things, but I don't think there's that much the president can do. Which is why, by the way, I totally endorsed. I'll just say this quickly. But a lot of conservatives even were, indignant that Trump made this deal with Adams that he would withdraw the federal BS corruption charges against him. In exchange, Adams would cooperate with ICE on illegals. And everyone's saying this is bribery, this is bribery. Well, there isn't that much a president can do about crime. And crime is a huge issue facing the country. Here's something the president can do. Here's something he can do. He can put pressure on a mayor to get serious about crime by saying, I'm going to lift these, again, BS federal charges against you. I thought that was fantastic. And it is the most important issue facing New York.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to see when the general comes up. But for everybody else, where can they find you?
AnnCoulter.substack.com. I have a buffo column going out today. It goes directly in your inbox. A really good interview with David Zweig, who has the definitive book on the COVID lies, lies, lies. And every Friday I do a 5 Stories You Might Have Missed This Week podcast where I can get really politically incorrect because it's hard to type that out and attack me for anything I say.
Right on. Well, Ann, thank you so much for joining me.
Good to talk to you, Tim.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. All right, we'll wrap this up and close this out. That was, of course, Ann Coulter, the famous, and certainly has been very influential on the issue of immigration. But we're just about that time. So, my friends, smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Me, I might be a little harsher, I suppose. In the event that this guy in New York goes nuts and starts going communist and all that stuff, I'd have no problem with the DOJ. Well, let me make sure I caveat and clarify this. My point is, in the event this guy is violating civil rights, defying ICE, all of that stuff, send in the DOJ. Just do it. I mean, if the people vote for stuff, the people vote for stuff, that's fine. But if he's defying the law, then Trump should do what he can with the DOJ to go after these people. We're going to send you guys to go join Russell Brand, who is currently gearing up to go live right now. So once again, as I said, smash that like button, share the show, follow me on X and Instagram at TimCast. We are back tonight at 8 p.m. TimCast IRL. Come hang out. Don't miss it. Tell all your friends. I mean, we can't do it without you guys. And thanks to all of you, Mug Club members, Rumble audience, Dan Bongino fans, TimCast fans, together, we've made Rumble the premier top spot for live broadcasts in the United States, which matters. It's massive. We want to build that out. We want companies to recognize what that means. And with your help, we'll keep going. So long as you guys are sharing the show and telling everybody to come hang out when we're live, 8 p.m. tonight, TimCast IRL. We'll see you all then.